Hi, I'm Lily Newman. Welcome to Viewpoint. My co-host Susan Solomon will be joining us next week. And our guest today is Andrew McKenna, who wrote the book Sheer Madness, From Federal Prosecutor to Federal Prisoner.
Yes.
Hi, thank you for joining us.
All right, thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure.
Andrew, tell us about Sheer Madness.
Well, Sheer Madness, I chose that title because it really captured a period of my life, going back some time now. I was a prosecutor with the Justice Department in Washington, D.C. Previous to that, I was in the Marine Corps. I hurt my back. Couldn't do much about it when I was with the Marines. But once I left and went to the Department of Justice, I went to a local doctor, complained about my back problem, and right off the bat, he said, well, we need to treat it. And of course, I'm thinking, all right, MRI, physical therapy, stretching, lose some weight.
Acupuncture.
Yeah, acupuncture, something holistic.
Right.
But his idea was to start with Percocet.
Wow, okay.
And when I was a kid, I'd never dabbled in pills. It was always a little bit of, pot and some drinking and stuff like that. But once I took those Percocet, then it just changed everything. And it became very difficult to stop. Lily, I mean, there were times where I would stop. I was traveling the country, traveling the world, prosecuting these cases. But ultimately, it would always call to me. And opioids are, of course, the no-feel, no-deal drug, as you know, being a clinician. And so it took away like any sort of insecurities about my work, anxiety about bills, all these things. A couple pills would make that go away.
Yeah. And that's it changes people, and they like how that feels.
Right.
And how it works for them.
Right.
So then you are going around the world prosecuting people different for drugs or just anything.
Mainly
part of the Justice Department.
Mainly drug cartels and money laundering, which is of course the irony there, right?
Yes.
And as time went on, I was up and coming. I wasn't like in the top of the DOJ at the time, but I was making a lot of good progress in my career. Drinking a little bit, lots of pills, and it came to the point where I was taking more than what was ordered, and I could call my doctor and explain it to him, and he'd say, "Okay, well, I'll refill it." And so that kind of snowballed. Ultimately became addicted to oxycodone.
How long was this period of time from like beginning to when you knew that it was bad?
See, that's the surprising thing. You think that this would take something over a couple of years, but really it's a matter of months.
Right.
And being in the field, you understand that. A lot of people that I speak to when I travel the country, they're surprised to hear that. But what happened was I moved from Washington, D.C. back to upstate New York, where we're from. And I couldn't find a doctor to prescribe Percocet. The state had started to take that action against doctors over prescribing. So I turned to an old friend who I knew smoked pot all the time and never really left the area. And he said, "Well, I can get this new thing called Oxycontin." And we knew it in the Justice Department. The derogatory term called hillbilly heroin.
That's right.
Right? Because
that's right.
Remember,
that's how it was called. That's right.
Yeah, because in Appalachia,
Virginia, that's right.
They were crushing it, snorting it, injecting it, and dying. So immediately, being a person who is susceptible to addiction, I was a little bit intrigued, and I said, "Okay, well, let me try one." Sure enough, not only did it take my back pain away, but it basically took away all the pain up here, any kind of trauma, stress, all of those things.
Works.
Yeah, and as soon, and it's funny you say that it works because you're right, but we both know it's a house of cards.
That's right.
And once those ran out on the street, you just couldn't get them anymore. The only substitute at that point, so you don't get violently ill, is heroin.
So what time frame, what year was this about?
So we're looking at right around 2000, between 2003 and 2005, and I would put together some clean time, still operating at a high level. I was working at a great firm, law firm, practicing law, but as I said a second ago, it's a house of cards, and ultimately when those ran out, then my performance started to drop while I was still using, naturally. You develop a tolerance, and you're not as sharp anymore, and people see it.
Did you see it?
I saw it, and here's the funny thing is, I didn't think anyone else saw it. Because
Right.
that's the great lie of addiction.
That's right.
And so, and nobody said anything because people are afraid.
That's right.
Because if they're wrong,
that's right.
Right.
You get mad.
Yeah. And so I was able to stick it out for a while until the Oxycontin ran out. I remember it to this moment, and I talk about it when I do my speaking. Sitting in my office and starting to perspire violently.
That's right.
And my stomach started flipping. And, I didn't know what was happening because I'd never been through it before.
Got it, because you always had something.
Right,
so
I always
you didn't have
had
to go through the withdrawals.
Right, and going through withdrawals of an Oxycontin is much greater than like a Percocet, even though that's a terrible situation too. So naturally I call my friend and I'm like, I need an Oxycontin because I'm sure I'm going through these withdrawals I heard of. And ultimately he said he didn't have any. He was very calm about it. And I said, well, why aren't you getting sick? Because I know I am.
Right.
And there's a long pause, and he said, well, come over. So I left my office. I remember, as I said, to this moment, client in the waiting room, dash over to his little town outside of Albany, and he introduced me to heroin.
That was it.
Yeah.
And you felt better.
Immediately felt better, but it was a new beginning of the end. I mean, Oxycontin itself was bad. At that point, I mean, heroin just completely took over.
Right.
And here's the weird thing. So I write the book, and Paul Grondel, a journalist in Albany, New York, great writer, great journalist, he reviewed it. And we interviewed the day before he reviewed it. And I didn't think he liked me. It was a weird thing. But he's really well known up there. And I really wanted, obviously, a good review. Sure. And but he wrote something very poignant, and he said that heroin doesn't read resumes.
Right.
And you and I talked before the show. There's still this stigma out there.
That's right. That's down those people in those areas.
Right.
And it's not. It's here. It's in your backyard.
That's
it
right.
really is. So then tell us the federal prisoner part.
All right. Well, this is.
And now you're married at this point, or no, not yet.
Not married yet, but the love of my life, Dawn, is very much involved.
There. Okay.
She's there.
She's there.
And she doesn't know what's about to happen.
Got it.
And so.
And that's with many families.
Oh, yeah.
They don't know. They don't know.
Absolutely.
You can hide it so well.
Absolutely. And you become masterful at hiding it because you'll do anything so nobody can interrupt your using.
That's right.
And getting sick from heavy opioids, it's just it's the flu times 30 or 40. It's so painful, and I'm not making excuses.
I know you're not.
I should have asked for help, but when you're in the compulsion stage of addiction, you're not thinking rationally.
You're not thinking about help. You want to get well. You want to get well.
Right, and so those irrational thoughts led me to not go to family court. Big breakup with my ex-wife, not Dawn, my ex-wife. Custody battle over my 2 young kids.
Got it.
Became excessively depressed, and this being in the field. I mean, they go hand in hand.
That's right.
And I gave up.
It's easy just to say, forget that.
Yeah.
We'll just worry about something else. I'll put that off to the side for now.
I'll put it off to the side for now, and but this pain, this emotional pain, this physical pain, overcame me to the point where I really didn't want to live anymore. Right. I'm driving to family court, where I know I'm going to get another beat down in court, and for good reason. Right. Then back then you blame everybody.
Right.
Once you get clean, you realize that's right. So one day I was driving to family court, and instead of going to court, I drove north to a little town called Lake George, New York, north of Saratoga, and I went to the first bank I found and I robbed it. Jesus. I walked in. I went to the little counter. I wrote a demand note. Walked up to the teller, and that's how far I was gone.
Right. Right.
And when I talk to different groups, I recognize, like, I'm gonna be with 100 college kids, freshmen, in their incoming thing. I said, I don't expect you guys to become bank robbers. Right. I'm not a bank robber. Right. But I will say the point is, this stuff can take you places you never would imagine.
Right.
And then so over the course of the next 5 or 6 weeks, I robbed 5 more banks and 2 grocery stores.
Such a short period of time.
It
You
was,
went from driving to family court, doing what you need to do, going into the bank. And I know now, looking back, you could see the steps.
right.
At that moment, did you think, I mean, you went there, had an idea, but it seemed so surreal.
It was so surreal. It's a perfect word for it. I remember walking into the bank, and I was dressed just like I am now.
Right.
Maybe I had a sport coat on and a baseball cap.
Right.
Clearly not a disguise.
Right, not a disguise.
Not a disguise. So, I mean, that's the irrationality
Right.
piece. I walk in, and I just remember feeling numb.
Right.
And then I remember feeling sort of like this white light surrounding me. And there was a moment of, I wasn't fearful.
Right.
I wasn't remorseful. There was no guilt.
Right.
And so as I get clean and sober over the years,
Right.
now I have to deal with that guilt. I have to deal with the look in the teller's
That's
eyes.
right.
I have to deal with the risk that I put all these people.
That's right.
Not to mention, Lily, what I put Dawn through,
Right.
my brothers and sisters, my mom, my dad, friends.
Right.
But the message there is that, yeah, maybe your drug or alcohol use now isn't going to lead you to such an extreme. The message is it's going to lead you places that are going to destroy families,
That's right.
destroy occupations, those sorts of
Relationships,
things.
you're right.
Yeah. People really, I encourage people to seek help. I know St. Vincent's does amazing work. I'm with addiction campuses.
Right.
We do really solid
Right.
work. But we do need to try to change the approach to treatment and move from the cookie cutter approach.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Because we know it doesn't work. So.
It's not working.
Yeah.
And it's just not working. We need to just do something different. And just each person has to have their own. I know we're supposed to have plans, but, gender specific. I mean, there's a whole range of things that we need to change because we're missing the message. So then 5 weeks, that was all it was?
5.5, 6 weeks. So I get caught. Again, here's my disguise.
Right.
So and it wasn't, on the local news, and I'm watching myself on the local news.
Jesus.
So the day that I'm arrested, I robbed my final bank in the morning, really, really sick, completely despondent, despair, depression. And they had me dead to rights. They pulled me over. Rush hour traffic heading into Albany from Rensselaer County, and they pulled me over. They arrest me and do their interrogation. Oddly, having been a prosecutor and a defense attorney, I know the Constitution pretty well. And I ended up, lecturing them on why I don't have to sign this document.
Right.
I mean, again,
and
isn't that
thinking. Right? And that's really the using talk.
Yeah.
It's a substantive. Like, excuse me.
Right.
Like, don't tell me what I need to do.
Yeah. Here I am about to throw up
That's
because I
right.
need heroin,
That's
and I'm going
right.
to tell you about the Constitution.
That's right.
And they looked at me, and then one was sort of a salty state trooper detective who was super cool. Right. The other guy was a young FBI agent. So he's just rolling his eyes at me.
Right.
The detective's just going, oh, God. So let him stop talking.
That's right.
But ultimately, the case was picked up by the feds, and I pled guilty. I was out. I managed to get bail after my third try. I didn't tell on anybody. Nobody was bribed.
Right.
I think we just kind of showed the judge that, I had had enough.
Right.
I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so I found a really good treatment program.
I was going to ask you went to treatment?
I did.
Okay.
And that
Good
was
for
the
you.
key. For
you.
Lily, I was out for a year on bail, and so I did intensive outpatient, IOP.
Okay.
A lot like what you guys do at St. Vincent's. And it was just, I was surrounded by love, compassion, help, and accountability.
Right.
That accountability piece is critical. I wasn't trying to get out of doing a prison sentence. I didn't want to put myself through that. More importantly, I didn't want to put my family and loved ones.
That's right.
So eventually it comes to sentencing, and I'd probably done maybe a full total of 15 months in the county, and year under my belt of clean time.
Right.
Quality
You're a
clean
different
time.
person going in.
Different person, and the judge could appreciate that. But if you're going to rob banks, you're going to prison.
Right, you're going to do the time.
Yeah.
But at least you're a different person standing before him. You're going to do your time. You're going to be accountable, but you're not the same person you were.
Right, and the judges see that,
Right.
and especially I see it with the older judges, but also the newer judges. I mean, we're seeing a sea change where they are going to reward, your transformation.
That's right. That's right.
You better come at them sincere.
That's right. That's right.
Because
come at them right.
Yeah, they get lied to 100 times a day.
Come right.
So yeah, you got to come right, and I did, and I didn't get a massive reduction in my sentence, but he took into consideration the fact that I got 65 months.
Okay, which is what, 5 years?
About 5.5.
Got it.
Yeah, so 5.5, which I deserved every month of that, every year of that. Came to realize that this was nobody's fault. Certainly, addiction is a disease. Right. It's not a moral failing.
That's right.
With that said, though, people that are using have a responsibility.
That's right. They're responsible for their behavior.
That's
their
right.
Actions.
Yeah, the buck stops here.
That's right.
And also, the onus is on the addicted person, and I know it's difficult, but to ask for help.
Right. That's right.
So while I was in prison, I had a lot of time on my hands, and so I started journaling in those little black and white composition books, right?
Yeah.
And before you know it, I had like a stack like this.
Is that what? And that came to the book.
Yeah.
Got it.
So I get out. I'm meeting with a friend of mine, Brian Barrett, who's a lawyer up in Lake Placid, and he's kind of flipping through some of these, and he said, these are some funny stories. There are also some very tragic stories.
Right.
But he said, this is very real.
Right.
He said, you got to turn this into a book. I'm not here to make money off of it. The proceeds go to a nonprofit. But I learned that it was able to help some families and people who are addicted gain a little bit of perspective.
Right. That's right.
And there's a lot of stuff out there that's very good to read to help families. But the thing that has brought me probably the greatest joy out of this was having calls from folks that said, I had no idea why my daughter keeps doing what she's doing.
That's right.
But it talks about the throes of addiction and where it can take us,
And the brain, because we don't teach that in treatment, about how the brain gets affected, and we remember what makes us feel good, and we want to continue doing it.
Right.
We don't teach our clients that.
Right.
So they walk around like, how come I can't stop?
Yeah.
It's just,
why is this calling to me 3 months later?
That's right. That's right.
But now we're teaching that.
That's
we're showing a brain that's healthy and not dependent, and the dopamines are being created naturally versus the ones that aren't.
That's right.
So it takes you some crazy places.
And now Dawn, you're married.
Dawn stuck with me through thick and thin. She's an absolute saint. We have a son together named Quinn, who just turned 11.
Wow. Because he was a baby. Because I read in the back, when you got out, you went home, and you said, where's the baby? And you went, and he was sleeping, and you touched his
I did. Oh, my God, you're going to make me cry. So what it was when I was in county jail after first getting caught, before going to prison, Dawn gave birth to our son.
Right.
And then I got bail, so he's just, maybe 2 months old at the time.
Right.
And I come into the house. I had been away in jail for months and months, and I go in, and he's in a little bassinet, and it's just like, oh my God. And ever since, he's just been my little guy.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. That's great. It's when I say a great story, no disrespect, but it really is very honest, and that's what gets people to listen and to read your book and listen to you and start being able to look at their own lives, because you and the other people out there represent people that are using, that are stuck on this stuff,
and stuck. And it's difficult because I spend my days getting people into treatment, either with one of my programs or with programs that I've gone and vetted. Like I know we know what's good, what programs are good and which ones aren't.
Right.
But it's so hard to talk to that family member, and so I hear this a lot. Well, what if I confront him and he doesn't like me anymore?
There you go.
And it's a delicate subject, right? Because you don't want to create a wedge in a family, but at the same time, you don't want mom or dad to get that phone call or to walk in the rooms and find them,
kids dead.
And we see that more and more.
I know. The numbers are staggering.
Yeah.
The numbers are staggering. Now, you were talking before, we were talking about a bazillion things. We said we're going to save it till now. the opiates. I forgot what it was.
Was it FDA?
Maybe.
Well, we know that Big Pharma, Purdue.
That's
what it
about.
was.
That's right.
So, and I don't look at Big Pharma like this big, dangerous group of people.
Right.
I mean, they're spending billions of dollars doing research and development, trying to get quality medications to market.
Right.
And we know, probably across the board, they're succeeding in that realm. But to see, like this, the CDC just came out with a recent report about the different counties and how many pills are prescribed in certain counties.
That's right.
Right, and you look at Ohio and West Virginia.
That's right.
I mean, forget what's happening in New York.
Yeah.
That's bad enough.
Right. But West Virginia, Ohio, you're absolutely right.
Staggering numbers of pills per household.
That's right.
They broke it down, I think.
That's right.
And then the FDA makes a decision last year, and I was on Fox and Friends debating Dr. Keith Abloh. The FDA had just approved Oxycontin. To me, heroin in a pill.
That's right. That's absolutely.
Sending, kids as young as 11 and 12 home with it.
Now, what injury could they have that they need an oxy for?
Well, the
Advil won't work.
Right. And so my point to Dr. Abloh, and he's a noted psychiatrist and physician, and his point, well, doctors have to be able to, treat pain. Completely agree with that.
Right.
But were they yelling for more potent drugs prior to this FDA decision?
Right.
I mean, they still have, fentanyl they can give under controlled circumstances.
Right.
But let's not put anything more in the medicine cabinets.
And what could a 12-year-old, unless it's cancer, unless it's a disease that is so painful, horrific, then you should get meds.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we were with Senator Gillibrand yesterday, and Senator Gillibrand and Senator McCain sponsoring a bill to go federal that doctors can only prescribe 7 days of medication.
Which I support. Right. I think, there's going to be folks that are going to have to go back every 7 days, and they're going to need it every 7 days. I'm sure they're going to carve out exceptions for those people.
Absolutely going to.
You mentioned
palliative
cancer.
Care. Right.
Okay.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
Right.
My doctor, for instance, now he read my book, so he won't give me even Motrin, which is smart. But he does sports medicine, and he does some at Syracuse. But if somebody comes to him, let's say with a blown out ankle or a knee, he's only prescribing 5 days of an opioid.
You go. Right.
Because he knows they're going to need help sleeping. He can see the pain on their faces.
Right.
But come back and see me in 5 days and we'll reevaluate.
That's right. And he's doing that on his own.
Right.
And but a lot of doctors aren't. And I don't know if they're not getting the message or they're not connecting the part that they play. Because I don't want to think that the doctors aren't there writing these scripts to get people stoned. There are some that are making money off it. Absolutely.
Right. But the vast majority are doing the right thing.
They're doing the right thing, and I don't think they know how bad this stuff is.
So somebody asked me, what would you suggest? And I didn't know what to suggest. And I thought to myself, there's people that go to doctors' offices that are not seeking any sort of high.
Right.
And you have drug seekers, but we've already gotten that somewhat under control with the iStop program. But if you go to the doctor and you're not seeking a high, but you're not aware yourself of what a script of Lortab, then, I thought about the Miranda warnings that we see on TV.
Right.
If doctors were required or their nurses were required to give that list of warnings, that at the end of 30 days, that 31st day, when though you don't have a pill, it's going to call to you.
That's right.
And maybe you're strong, you get through it, you walk, but then there should be a warning: if you don't need these after 3 days, stop taking them.
That's right.
And then turn them into your local police station.
Absolutely, it's a great idea.
Yeah, don't flush them down the toilet. I was told that it affects the fish.
That's right. You can't do that.
Yeah.
So, but that's a great idea because I don't think doctors do that.
I have never had a doctor this asked.
Right.
And I know they're busy, and they're probably not. It's probably not top of mind.
Right. But it needs to be.
I really do.
When you're giving out these types of meds, you need to tell them exactly what can happen. Because do you know Dr. Stephen Dewey? Have you?
I know the name.
Okay. Well, he does a lot of the brain, the PET scans of the brain, and he talks about, and he does. He can show you that if you don't have a pain, that's when you get addicted. As long as you have some sort of pain, the oxys will work for the pain. The minute the pain stops and you continue to take them, that's the beginning of the addiction.
Now you're getting high,
That's
and that's
it.
your
That's it.
escapism.
That's it.
Well, that makes sense.
That's it.
That makes sense.
Right. So we have to do better at educating
Yeah.
people out there about what's going on. And I think we're doing it.
I think so. I think certain treatment facilities are figuring it out because they see the same person come through, the 28-day program. I mean, I've seen it where 8 and 9 28-day programs. Well, what's the program? Talk to me about the type of treatment.
Right.
Do you do dialectical behavior therapy? Do you do CBT?
Right.
Do you do adventure therapy?
Right. And how about when you're out of your inpatient, then you go to outpatient,
Right.
and then you do 3 months, 4 months in outpatient, and then you're on your own.
Right.
We have to follow up with this drug. We have to follow our clients at least for a year and a half.
Year and a half.
Have to follow them. They've got to be monitored. And I think that's where recovery coaching, peer coaching, step down where they can go. It's affordable insurance, or buy into it.
Absolutely.
If you've got a plan, you show the insurance company, look, they've done it your way. You get them here, you go here, and we watch them every step of the way. They're not going to get, hopefully, they'll get recovery a year and a half.
Yeah, and we know that's the magic number, a year to 18 months.
That's right.
And I'll tell you what insurance companies doesn't want to save money?
Bingo.
By doing it that way,
That's right.
we're saving your money. So what we created with Addiction Campuses is what's called the Balanced Life Curriculum. And it examines 6 areas of the life, of people's lives. So it's finances, work, family, spiritual. And we do an assessment to figure out what area of that person's life isn't getting enough attention, what area is getting enough attention or needs more.
Right.
And then for up to 15 or 18 months through a balanced life, we do weekly coaching
So
sessions.
they stay with you. You have them that long? I mean,
Absolutely.
talk about, we got like a minute, and I'm so sorry. Talk about
No, I'm sorry.
the
I
campus.
don't- I don't- I don't
No,
wanna
please,
plug
I
it.
want you
Yeah.
to. I want you to tell me about
So
it.
what we'll do is a comfortable detox,
Right.
and because we don't want people suffering.
Right.
Then a residential program, say 30, 45 days, good foundation, and then a balanced life where they go and they do an IOP, so maybe something like St.
That's
Vincent's.
right.
And then, but we stay with them beyond that.
I see.
Yeah, weekly coaching sessions.
So you can do it on the phone?
Yep.
So if they
phone,
come up to
Skype.
you, okay.
Yep,
then
FaceTime.
So you stay connected to your clients a year and a half.
We have to. Otherwise,
amazing.
Well, that's our founder, Brent Clemens, came up with this idea, and Dr. Brooks is our chief clinical guy, and our chief people officer, and our clinical team said, well, what's the solution?
Right.
Right? And I mean, we're talking pennies.
Right.
You know, we're not talking,
Right.
another treatment program.
So what was I going to say? What was my question? It was about your program. The link. Oh, what's your, I don't want to say success, but what are your outcomes? Because people want to know. What are your outcomes?
Outcomes.
And then we got to go.
So we put into so we put into our alumni program where we're tracking people.
Okay.
And is when they're involved with a balanced life, now we're talking weekly.
Right.
We're taking their temperature
Let's go.
weekly. And it's awesome.
So how many people stay sober, and how long do they stay sober before we go? Quick!
So it's an amazing success rate. I can't put a percentage on it, but it's way above the national average.
I'll tell you what, next time you come back, we're going to talk about that.
More about the programs.
Please, thank you
My
very
pleasure.
much. Thank you, Andrew, for being here.
Thank you
Really,
so
it was
much.
good having you.
Thank you.
Thank you.